We're going to start with the different lessons about teaching the 4 skills. We're going to start, as it says here, with teaching listening. But before we do that, we need to establish what the categories of skills are. We have listening, we have speaking, reading, and writing. These 4 skills are divided into different categories. Well, different names for the same categories. We can classify them as language acquisition and language learning skills. Language acquisition skills are listening and speaking, as these 2 skills are even acquired in our native language. Reading and writing are skills that we learn even in our native language. So, language acquisition skills, listening and speaking. Language learning skills, reading and writing. We can also divide them into passive and active. Passive skills are listening and reading, because these 2 skills are the ones that bring information in our brain. Active skills are speaking and writing, because they are the ones that we produce. They are also called productive skills. So passive skills, listening and reading. Active skills, speaking and writing. We can also classify them into input and output. And as you may be imagining already, input skills are listening and reading, because they bring information into our brain. And output skills are speaking and writing, because they bring information out of our brain. All right. Then, having said that, let us start with listening. As we already said, listening is a language acquisition, an input, and a passive skill. Okay, but when we talk about the skills, we also need to talk about the sub-skills or of the main skill, right? So we can say that we have different types of listening. We will also see different sub-skills or other sub-skills, but these are the types of listening. Listening for gist, listening for specific information, listening for inferences, or listening between the lines for implications. We need to understand the word gist, which is the first one. Okay, listening for gist, the word gist means generally, general information. So when we listen for gist, we try to understand a general idea, what it is mainly about, what the speakers are talking about generally. Listening for specific information is aiming to find names, details, places, dates, and descriptions, something more, as the name says, detailed information. When we listen, sometimes we can infer the mood, the feelings, all right, or the place where the speakers are having a conversation, and we can infer it because of the context of the conversation. So we listen for inferences, we listen for implications. So we have listening for gist, listening for specific information, listening for inferences, and listening between the lines. How can we teach listening? And generally, how can we teach the different skills? This first video about listening gives the fundamentals about teaching the rest of the 4 skills. So it is important you pay attention to some main concepts here that we will cover, because they will also apply for the rest of the skills. So let's go for them. How can we teach listening or skills generally? We have 2 different approaches when teaching skills: bottom up, top down. It's important you remember these 2 terms, because they might be in the CENEVAL exam. You need to analyze the situations and understand if a teacher or whatever the situation is being narrated is following a bottom up or a top down strategy. What does bottom up mean? Bottom up is a strategy where you teach the skill on form, focused on form, on the structural way, on the theoretical way of the skill. Top down, on the other hand, goes for the functional part of the skill. Better said, if we are going for bottom up, we try, or we want our students to use the language with accuracy. If we go for the top down strategy, we want our students to be able to communicate, not giving too much importance on the accuracy of the grammar, but on the functionality, that our students are able to express themselves. So let me give you some examples. If we follow the bottom-up strategy about listening, let's say that we want our students to be able to understand, comprehend minimal pairs, for example, to be able to identify phonemes, the International Phonemic Alphabet, and we need to teach them what that means and go for the structural part, for the form of the listening, for the theory of listening, telling them that there are 12 vowel sounds in British English, and giving them the name, or well, the phonemes themselves, and asking them to practice listening, maybe going for minimal pairs, understanding different sounds, slight sounds that could be imperceptible for Spanish speakers. That will be bottom-up strategy. On the other hand, the top-down strategy will go for the communication, for the functionality of the skill. Example, we want our students to be able to understand the gist of a conversation, to be able to understand the mood of the speakers. And that is functionality of a language. We don't want them precisely to understand the theory. We want them to use the skill in real life, in everyday situation. Bottom-up strategy, then we could say it's more for academic purposes, maybe the preparation for a specific exam on that. And the top-down strategy is more for real life, for applying it into real situations. Those are the two strategies that can be applied to all the skills. Now, when we teach the skills, we need to divide our lesson in 3 moments: pre, while, and post listening. These will also apply for the rest of the skills. Pre, while, and post. It means that in the pre step, we want our students to be engaged into the lesson. How? By bringing meaningful information, by having them predicting what the lesson is going to be about, by, I don't know, bringing some videos previous to the main audio, maybe introduce some vocabulary. Then on the while listening or while skill step, we have our students practice the main audio in this case, because it is listening. And post listening, we have our students practice with drills, confirming the information they have practiced before in the post listening. So we have said the purposes of each one of them. Okay, but now I would like to focus on the sub-skills of listening. As I said in the beginning, listening for detail, for specific information. Predicting is another sub-skill of listening. Intensive listening, which means that you pay attention to pretty much all the words, word by word, as you are listening. Listening for gist, or listening for the general information. Inferring the attitude, mood, or feelings of the speakers, or deducing meaning from context. How do you know if our speakers is doing that? Well, if you have a question in the listening comprehension part where it says, can you do you say where the speakers are having a conversation? You're deducing the meaning from context, or you're inferring, because maybe in the conversation, the two speakers are talking about books and how to select one. So they might be at a library, or they might be at a bookshop. You are deducing, you are inferring, right? If they give you a word, I'm going to say the word harsh, right? And let's imagine that our students don't know what harsh means. But during the conversation, they listen to something like, I had a harsh day because it was too difficult. I had a lot of troubles during the day, and I could barely make it by the end of the day. So deducing the meaning from context to the word harsh. That's another sub-skill. So generally, those are the sub-skills of listening. Finally, like in any other lesson, any other handy lesson, you have the last slide, which is the time to practice slide. So you can go to your PDF, click on the link below, and start practicing on how to teach listening. See you in the next video.